Well, looky here. It's yours truly, Paul Allen, and it's my lucky day. I have found a truly elite football mind at Verizon Vikings training camp as part of his training camp tour. This is Kevin Seifert from ESPN.com, covers the National Football League from a national perspective, and he's here for Vikings training camp today. From a global standpoint, a national writer standpoint, when you think Vikings into 2019, what do you think?
I think everyone's wanting to see, number one, if the Kirk Cousins experiment's going to work. I think that's one of the most intriguing parts about this organization from the national perspective is, can you sign a veteran quarterback to a fully guaranteed contract and have him elevate your entire franchise? Obviously, we know what happened last year, and it's almost like the clock is already cooking on the end of the deal. It's only 2 more years. So I think that's what people really want to see is, can that work? Can somebody go through what Kirk Cousins went through to get to free agency? And can the team pay a quarterback what the Vikings paid him and have it pay off?
Well, Kevin, the new full-time coordinator is somebody who's been here a decade and a half, and Kevin Stefanski started out as right-hand man for Brad Childress, and the offensive advisor, I mean, you can't do better from an equity standpoint than Gary Kubiak. So in knowing the Stefanski-Kubiak offense is designed to put the veteran Cousins in the best position, how do you think that'll work out?
I think it'll work out much better than it did last year. It's a much better fit all around organizationally, I'd say, from the head of the coaching staff on down. I've been talking to some people on my training camp tour. They've wondered, how does Kevin Stefanski feel about Gary Kubiak coming in? And I think he loves it. I think it's great. There are some people who could be put in the spot that Gary Kubiak is in, and you would wonder, is this really going to work out? Is he gunning for his job? Is he going to undermine him? But if there's anybody certainly of his stature in this league that you could feel good about coming in and playing that very important but complementary role, it's Gary Kubiak. And so I think Stefanski's in a great spot. I think he's gonna, he'll have a buffer with Coach Zimmer. But he'll also have a chance to really instill the ideas that he's probably been developing for years. So I think it's a really good situation.
Let me ask you this. If you have Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen, and they're both healthy, and you have Dalvin Cook, and he's completely healthy, and you have Cousins, and he's performing the way he needs to perform now under the leadership of Stefanski and Kubiak, how do you defend it?
You have to hope that somehow you find holes in that offensive line. That would be the place to start. No matter what your skill position situation is, if you can get pressure up the middle, you can really mess up any quarterback, I think, or if it's pressure from the outside. And so that, I would imagine, is where some defenses will test the Vikings, and they've put a lot of work into making that group better, and there's a lot of early good signs there. But I would imagine that a lot of opposing coaches will start there.
Would you say the Vikings defense is a constant?
It's a constant in terms of being one of the better ones in the league, but in terms of, I think, the way that they want to operate, they want it to be one of the best, if not the best, top 5. And so I think they've kind of, they've been on either end of that top 5 mark. When they've been at their best under Mike Zimmer, it's been when they've been in that top 5 in terms of not just yards, but points scored, third down conversions, the more important numbers that you can measure a defense by. And so they will always be a team that will play good defense, but I think for them to go where they have to go, they need to have a great defense.
Now, this is Kevin's third NFC North stop for ESPN.com. And he's at Verizon Vikings training camp for this now, but you've seen the Bears and you've seen the Packers. So let's begin with the division champions. With the Chicago Bears, what'd you see?
Amazingly, I saw 2 things that were really interesting. Amazingly, they, no matter all the different things about their team, everyone wants to talk about their kicking. Everyone is looking at their kicking situation. We know why. They probably would have advanced at least 1 round in the playoffs if they'd had a kicker who could make a field goal, an easy field goal. And so that has been a huge focus and was a huge focus while I was there. They have 2 guys on the roster that really haven't been established kickers yet. It's very possible that their kicker for the season is on somebody else's roster right now. But that is unbelievably, but not unbelievably, the focus of their entire camp. And so that to me was really interesting. And the other thing was it rained the first day I was there. They practiced outside in full pads for 3 hours. So they know they play at Soldier Field, and they can't run inside if it starts raining.
And speaking of constants with the Green Bay Packers, you were at that training camp. Aaron Rodgers is the constant. In antithetical fashion, they splashed in free agency, and they also were picking high in the draft and took Michigan's Rashawn Gary. So now, with new head coach Matt LaFleur, what did you see with Green Bay camp?
I mean, you're right. Defensively, all kinds of new names and faces. They had they traded back into the first round and took the safety Darnell Savage. He hasn't practiced yet because he had his wisdom teeth taken out, but he's a really fast playmaking type guy. So that's another new name and face on their defense that should play a relatively prominent role. And so it's amazing talking about the Packers that they have seemed to have built their team around defense. Their offense has Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams and older Jimmy Graham, but there's certainly not the level of skill players, at least established skill players on that side of the ball as we're accustomed to seeing, and we can only assume that's by design.
Do you give the Vikings a legitimate chance to win the division?
Absolutely. I mean, they have been close, or there have been understandable reasons why it hasn't been close for almost all the tenure of Mike Zimmer, and there's every reason to think that they'll be up there. Nobody at this time last year was talking about the Bears as being even within the conversation, and so we know how those things can go. But absolutely, really, this is a division where at least 3 and maybe 4, if the Lions, a few things work out for the Lions, really can be in the conversation for that division title.
Kevin Seifert, ESPN.com at Verizon Vikings training camp. Make sure to stay here at Vikings.com for second to none training camp coverage.